Hello and welcome back to our Porsche restoration project. I thought I'd put together a video on how to properly apply a coating of POR 15. I'm going to use our trailing arms as a little demo video here. Here's our freshly blasted trailing arms, in really good shape, cleaned up really nice. Using 80 grit bead blasting for this. And so what we want to do is we want to strip our paint off. We want to properly prepare the surface for the POR 15. And POR 15 really likes to go down on sand-blasted material for the best result. Some of your best finishes are going to be on these rough castings. This stuff's going to turn out really, really nice. Also does a real nice job on smooth surfaces, but if there's any dust or residual sand bits on there, they'll get trapped in the POR 15 when it dries out, and you may end up seeing some little contamination bits on there. So we want to try and clean this piece as good as possible. What I like to do is take it out of the sandblasting tank, blow it off with an air hose real good. Take a paintbrush, a good clean paintbrush, a nylon bristle brush, something fairly stiff, and you actually want to brush the dust off. If you try to wipe it down with a rag, you're going to get lint and dust from the rag put onto the metal, and when you paint over it, it's going to stand up and kind of ruin your finish. So paintbrush to clean it really. Get in the corners, you can brush it out and blow on it while you're brushing. You get a nice clean surface. Also, you want to prepare the area really good, almost like doing surgery in a hospital. Get everything nice and clean so you don't have any dust in the area, and you're able to properly handle these. And then of course you want to have a little bit of a strategy. How am I going to apply this, and where am I going to start and stop, and how am I going to rest it once it has paint on it, and so on. What I like to do is figure out the best way to set the piece down with minimal of contact. In this case, you can see in the back there, I'm just barely sitting down. I'm having to give up maybe a 1/16 of an inch on that surface, and maybe, get the camera in there, maybe a 1/16 of anything there at all. So I'm really not touching that much if we have wet paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this front side on both these trailing arms, and brush on this side. I'm going to let it dry, and then tomorrow I'm going to roll it over, and then we're going to do the second side, and we're going to figure out where we want to start and stop the POR 15 so we can make a good transition. On these guys, I'm just going to take it right to the edge of this seam, and just right on the edge, barely starting to roll over, and then stop right there. And then we want to be careful not to get any in the threaded holes, because it could be very difficult getting your bolts back in there if you get too much of that POR down in those holes. So you brush up to the hole, but you don't really want to get runs or large amounts going down in the holes. Let's just look at our product here for a second. I'm just using a basic POR 15 gloss black. I punched some holes in top of the can, stirred it up real good, and then poured it into a plastic disposable cup via a strainer. So I've got a strainer in here. Get this guy on here. Straining everything real good, and not using it out of the can. I'm using it out of a disposable cup. A couple kinds of brushes we can use. First one, a lot of guys talk about online, they like to use a throwaway brush, and this is a typical cheap throwaway brush, but I wouldn't recommend putting this application with this type of brush. It's too soft, they shed, you could get hairs in it, and it's really not the right brush to put on this coating. What you really want is a nylon brush. I get these at my local paint supply shop. They're made by Worcester. You can get some of these. This is what you want. You can get down in the corners. It's an angled sash brush. I'm going to throw it away anyways, but this will get the job done in a way that this could never do. You're going to be much happier with the results with a good quality brush, even though you got to throw it away. Would give up on trying to clean out the brush. It's not worth it. Just do your coating, throw the brush away, get another brush to do the other side. If we were to powder coat these, and send them out. Don't know what it would cost, but I would guess somewhere probably around $100. So getting through this with a nice coat of POR 15 would really be beneficial, because you don't have to outsource it. You can control it here. If we have to go through a couple, 2, 3 brushes, if it turns out nice, I think in a lot of cases the POR 15 looks better than the powder coating. Almost looks like a porcelain coat. So I'm going to try to do this with my gloves on, and I'm going to go ahead and brush one out, and then I'm going to show you with the other brush while I'm holding the phone, basically how to try and get in some of those tight areas and get it going. Okay, let me put this on pause and get one started. Okay, got that one brushed on there. So it's been about 10-15 minutes. You can see it's starting to really pull itself down nice and tight and stretching itself out over the surface. It's only been a few minutes. And this rough casting here, I'm going to put 2 coats on this. But the trick on this is getting the timing just right for 2 coats. So this really needs to dry for about 4 to 5 hours. When I touch this surface and I don't get a fingerprint, it's just starting to harden up where I'm not getting a fingerprint, then it's time to recoat. And I'm just going to recoat only the porous surface. I'm not going to recoat our smooth surface, because right now this is going to be the best look you can possibly get out of it, is 1 coat over sandblasted base. That's on a smooth surface. On a rough casting, the best look is going to be 2 coats. And the reason that is, you can see, get up close here, you can see what happens is the grain, the high spots there, the POR 15 is actually starting to drain itself away from the peaks of all those high spots. So you need 1 more coat to get this back to complete jet black. However, in this area, we're already there. And if I try to recoat that after it cures up, can end up with a mess on our hands. We can end up with some dust trapped in there, and we can end up with possibly some brush stroke marks. And I've just not had good success putting 2 coats on a smooth surface, but I've had very good success putting 1 coat on and 2 coats on a porous surface. I'm going to show you now how I use this brush. I'm going to try anyways with the phone. I got a new phone on order today, and maybe I can get a tripod and show you how to do some of these stuff a little bit better from a video perspective. Okay, so I'm putting very little material on the brush, and what I'm trying to do, I'm not trying to brush it. I'm actually just trying to press it in. That's why this kind of a brush, I'm actually dabbing it and pressing it in the pores. I'm not brushing around it, this hole here. I'm actually just pushing up to it. The POR 15 will work itself out. You don't have to worry about brush strokes or things like that, because the magic in this stuff is that it just takes so long to cure, and by doing so it 100% flows out. You can see I'm just barely touching, barely dabbing all these difficult areas here. I'm not going to be able to pick this up and roll it over. You kind of get the idea. So that's really all the material you want on there. You can put more on there, but it's really counterproductive, because what's going to happen is it's curing out. It's just going to run. So you want to just press in, just press it in there, get it in nice and tight, and just let the POR 15 do its thing. And get it all pressed in there, and then just maybe knock it down, and you're good. Stop right there. You can see I don't have it running down in the hole. I got it right up to the edge of the hole, but it's not actually going down in. And that's why, let me just grab this other brush here, and that's why this one here, this brush here, is just really not going to work. If I try to press paint in with this, it's just too much flex. It's actually skimming over the surface and not getting down into the pores. And that's what you want to do with POR 15. You want to just press it, get it down in there. Okay, so that's for our porous surface. Let's try our smooth surface. A little bit more, just a dab. You can see it's really messy. Whenever I bring it off the edge of this cup, it seems to be flicking all over the place. Okay, so when we're doing a smooth surface, it's got these little rings in there. I like to try and get in there first and just trim out just with the tip of the brush. Just get it in there. And we're just dabbing. We're not trying to put gobs and gobs of paint on there where it's running down the backside, and then just work it out. Get it all worked out. Just press it in. Looks pretty nasty right now, but it'll work itself out. And just do that for all the holes. Get around this one here. Get some coating in there. And then when you think you have enough material on there, go ahead and knock it down. Brush it out. And you should be good to go. And then take a look at your backside. Make sure you're not running around the backside. You got runs running out of there. If you have some runs, you can just wipe it down with your glove. I wouldn't let it run on there because it hardens up. You won't get it out on your next coating. So you have to take care of your runs. And just go real slow. The beauty of this stuff is that you have lots and lots and lots of working time. So the slower you apply this material, the more you press it into the sandblasted etch, the better off it's going to turn out. You can see here, it looks a little bit thin. So I could add a little bit more material to that, but it's still going to pull down, so it's really counterproductive to put a lot of material on in one coat. You can see this one really starting to come around. And I've marked all these before I pulled them off the car, right and left. And you can see right here, you see that line in there. It actually scribed the location of where this goes back on the car. It should get me back in the ballpark fairly quickly when I go to reassemble. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. I'm going to put one more coat on the back side, or the rough side here. And then tomorrow I'm going to apply second coat and see how these guys turn out. See what they look like fully dry. Okay, I got both of those coated. One other trick is a good idea is to keep your paintbrush through your second coat. This will work for your 4 or 5 hours of drying time, but it probably won't work overnight. So if you try to save this brush using this method overnight, it's probably not going to work. It's going to get too hard around the edges. But if you put a little paint on there, dip it in your pail, get it nice and wet, and then press down some plastic around it, or maybe stick it in a baggie and just keep the air off it while these are setting up. Then you can reuse it for your second coat on your rough castings before you have to throw it away. Another thing to look out for, as it's drying, you can see it's starting to drain now. See, that area, I've got more than 1/16 of an inch touching my surface. So periodically while it's drying, maybe once an hour, you're going to have to lift these gently and then set them to a fresh area, get them out of that wet spot, and that should clean itself up and not be a problem for you. Okay, let these guys dry up, and then we'll get that other coat on there and see how they look. Okay, we got both pieces finished. Seemed to turn out really well. It's dried up overnight, so it's good enough to touch and handle, although it'll probably take a few days to really harden up and become rock hard, which is really what it's known for. Really just a beautiful coating and a very durable coating. I read some of the stuff online where guys either really love this stuff or they hate it, and I can see where they hate it if it goes wrong. So it's very sensitive on its application. It likes certain weather conditions to put it down, and it likes certain prep work conditions to apply properly. Weather conditions, really it prefers a 60-degree environment. 60, mid-60s is optimal for this product. 70s is nice, so you get up in the 80s. You're probably only want to be doing some very small parts with it. As far as prep work, you can see here, got some other parts. We're going to do this with the POR 15. If you used to put it down on this kind of a surface, you'd probably get some really good results, but it really likes that sand-blasted etch to get in there and get its traction and stick like it wants to stick. If you put it down on smooth metal that hasn't been sandblasted, it'll peel right back off. It's so hard and so slick that it won't even stick. So it really needs an etch to bite. But if you get through those conditions and you get the prep work right, you have yourself a real beautiful finish and a real nice look. You can see the undercoating I'm going to be using on this project together work really nice. A real nice look. Okay, so there you have it, POR 15. I recommend it. Just take your time, go slow, get your prep work done, and you're going to be real happy with the results. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.